In the bustling heart of the city, where skyscrapers touched the clouds and businessmen hurried past with their eyes glued to glowing screens, there lived a man who had everything the world thought mattered. He was a CEO, one of those powerful figures who commanded respect in boardrooms and signed deals that shaped industries. His name was Alexander, a man known for his sharp mind, cold demeanor, and relentless pursuit of success. From the outside, he appeared to have it all: wealth, influence, and a lifestyle many could only dream of. But deep inside, behind the polished suits and glass walls of his office, Alexander carried a hollowness that no achievement seemed to fill. Life had turned him into someone hardened, someone who thought vulnerability was weakness. He had grown up poor, often going to bed hungry, and he swore to himself as a young boy that one day he would never feel that way again. He worked tirelessly, sacrificed friendships, distanced himself from love, and poured everything into building his empire. Now, sitting at the top, he could afford any meal, any mansion, any luxury car. Yet, despite all the glitter of his success, loneliness clung to him like a shadow. One rainy evening, after a long day of negotiations and endless meetings, Alexander stopped at a quiet diner tucked away on a side street. It was not one of the elegant restaurants he usually frequented but rather a small, humble place filled with the aroma of freshly baked bread and warm stew. Something about its simplicity drew him in, and for the first time in years, he wanted to eat somewhere ordinary. He ordered generously, far more than he could eat, perhaps out of habit or maybe as a way to fill the void gnawing inside him. As he sat by the window, absent-mindedly pushing food around his plate, the rain tapping softly against the glass, he heard a small, hesitant voice behind him. May we have your leftovers?" The voice was so soft he almost thought he had imagined it. But when he turned, he saw them, two little girls, no older than 8 or 9, standing together in worn-out clothes that were soaked from the rain. Their hair clung to their foreheads, and their shoes looked too small for their growing feet. Yet, what struck him most were their eyes. They were wide, innocent, and filled with a mixture of hunger and quiet desperation. Eyes that seemed to pierce through the layers of steel he had built around his heart. Alexander froze. He had seen beggars before, brushed past them without a thought, convincing himself he had worked hard and everyone else could too. But something about these girls was different. Perhaps it was the way they held onto each other's hands tightly, as though they were all the other had in the world. Perhaps it was the way their voices trembled yet carried a strange dignity, as if they were asking politely rather than begging. Or perhaps it was the way their eyes mirrored the same emptiness he had felt as a child, the same gnawing hunger he once knew all too well. Without a word, he pushed his plate toward them. The girls' faces lit up as if he had handed them a treasure. They whispered a soft, "Thank you," their voices barely audible but heavy with sincerity. They sat on the corner of the diner's bench, carefully sharing each bite, eating slowly as though savoring not just the food but the moment itself. Alexander watched them, a lump forming in his throat, memories flooding back of nights when he had scraped together crumbs, when his mother had gone without food just to feed him. For the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him, compassion, empathy, and a longing he had long buried under layers of ambition. He asked the waitress to bring more food, warm soup, fresh bread, and hot chocolate for the girls. When the plates arrived, the twins' eyes widened again, tears shimmering as they looked at him in disbelief. They whispered, "Are you sure?" As if kindness was something rare and fleeting in their lives. Alexander only nodded, unable to trust his own voice. As they ate, he learned their story in fragments. Their mother had passed away a year ago, and their father, unable to cope, had abandoned them. They had been living in shelters and on the streets, surviving on scraps and the kindness of strangers. Yet, despite their hardships, they spoke with a kind of hope, a resilience that humbled him. They still dreamed of going to school, of becoming something more, of having a place to belong. Alexander listened, his heart breaking with each word. He realized that no amount of money, no skyscraper or luxury, had ever made him feel as alive, as human, as this moment did. He saw himself in those little girls, the hungry boy who once stared at others eating, wishing for just a taste. And he knew, deep down, that fate had brought them into his path for a reason. That night, Alexander didn't just give them food. He gave them warmth, safety, and a promise. He arranged for them to have a place to stay, enrolling them in school and ensuring they would never have to beg again. At first, the girls hesitated, unsure if they could trust him, but his steady kindness began to melt their fears. They clung to him in gratitude, their little hands gripping his as though afraid he might vanish. As days turned into weeks, the once lonely CEO found his world changing. The twins filled the emptiness in his heart with laughter, with questions, with the simple joy of childhood. They would wait for him to return from work, rushing to him with stories of their day. They brought life into his grand, empty mansion, turning it from a cold structure into a home. And in return, Alexander gave them the love he had never known how to give, a love he didn't even know he was capable of. The boardroom battles, the endless deals, the constant chase for more, none of it mattered the same way anymore. What mattered was seeing those girls smile, hearing their laughter echo through the halls, watching them blossom into the children they were meant to be. For the first time, Alexander felt what true wealth was. Not in numbers on a screen or properties in his name, but in the bonds of love and the healing power of compassion. The story of the lonely CEO who once only lived for himself transformed into the story of a man who found a family in the most unexpected way. Those little girls, who had asked so humbly for his leftovers, gave him something far greater in return. They gave him purpose, redemption, and a chance to heal the broken child still living within him. And so, the man who had once been consumed by loneliness discovered that sometimes, the smallest voices carry the greatest power to change a life. Sometimes, the eyes of a child can remind us of who we once were and guide us back to who we were always meant to be. This tale, though fictional, carries a truth we often forget, that kindness, even in the smallest gestures, can ripple through lives in ways we may never fully understand. It reminds us that wealth without compassion is empty, and that love, given freely, is the greatest gift we can share. Would you like me to expand this into a full 1600-word script-style article with deep emotions, dialogues, and scene building like a movie story for your YouTube video?